floor angle parking stall like a second. There's not.
Okay.
So
So
select,
select
select source.
USB
It's
audio.
the speakers or it's this one channel.
And Scott, there's water in the
oh,
break
there is?
room.
Okay.
Have you been back there to the break room before?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't have our
That's good to
our
go.
coins today for the soda machine, but there's bottled water on the counter back there if you're thirsty.
Good.
Oh, I still have to click start.
They didn't even need Whenever you're ready, Chair.
You're ready?
Are you ready, team?
You're unmuted. There you go.
Give me just one moment.
Should we check if
You have someone on Zoom?
we've got Steve Harmon on? Zoom?
Okay. Okay, the audio recording is going now.
Okay.
Sounds like video's good, so. we
It
can
is
begin.
good.
All
Okay,
right, we will call the Architecture Review Commission for the City of Cottonwood Heights to order for September 22nd, 2022. Here on the commission is Scott Chapman, Scott Henriksen, thank you, Scott Peters, and Steve Harmon. And with that, welcome everyone. Does anyone have any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest to disclose? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 2, discussion items. Item 2.1, project CUP 22010. Action on a request by Range Architecture on behalf of Block Builders LLC for approval of a certificate of design compliance for cosmetic improvements and an alternative parking plan for an existing site at 6826 South Highland Drive. With that, I'll turn it over to staff for staff's report.
perfect. I'm just gonna slide this over to you. And then if you'll sign in on the sign-in sheet when you get a chance. Okay, so I'll note before we get going that we do have a representative from the project here with us, Derek. So if we, at any point, we need to clarify, I'll just allow the chair to bring him up to the table if you see fit. This is a little bit of a summary slide just showing our subject property here. The address is 6826 South Highland Drive. I'm going to show an aerial view in just a minute that will give you a better context, I think, of where it is on Highland, but I want to note that it's actually on the frontage stretch of Highland Drive. It's not on the arterial section. They are here tonight requesting certificate of design compliance for some minor exterior changes to the existing building, and then also an alternative parking plan. We are recommending approval with a few added conditions that we will walk through. So it's a little bit hard to see on this screen over here, but this blue rectangle here is the subject property. So we've got Fort Union here, and then we have Highland Drive. And if we advance one more slide forward, you can see the subject property here on that kind of frontage slip of Highland, the old Highland alignment there. So as a little bit of background, this project went to the Planning Commission earlier in this month. They approved a conditional use permit for a professional office to go in this existing building. The office will be for general contracting staff for Block Builders LLC, which is a general contractor specializing in commercial and retail builds, generally out of state. I do think it's pertinent to note for this project that there's no clients visiting the office. It's just for staff, just accounting and estimating staff. So it's pretty minimal needs as far as that goes. And we've also confirmed there will be no storage of construction materials or vehicles or equipment stored on site. So this building has remained vacant and unmaintained for several years. If we flip back to the street view, you can probably get a pretty good idea of the condition. It's been kind of on and off licensed as different businesses, but it's deteriorated in the years of vacancy. And tonight we have a project proposing to make some improvements to that, and that's something we like to see. So just to run through kind of their scope of work here, for those minor exterior changes, they are planning to do a little bit of porch work with repairing some trim that's fallen off just around the porch. Looking at applying some new paint to the building, so a two-tone warm gray to the building's facade, repainting the trim with some white paint, redoing the roof shingles in charcoal gray, and then repainting the door in white. Here we've got, just on the left, again, the existing condition of the building, and then on the right, rendering of what that color scheme might look like. I'll note that the landscaping in the rendering isn't actually pertinent to the site, but if you just look at the building, they've prepared that rendering to show the proposed color scheme.
And it looks much wider on the projector.
It does.
Even this is a little bit bright, but
Yeah, I realize every meeting that we have that we need a better projector for ARC meetings because it totally changes the color. But it is kind of a two-tone warm gray in the picture. So I'm going to dive in now to the proposed alternative parking plan, and then we can flip back to any questions you guys have. Just as a little bit of history on the site, it was developed in the 50s, so well before Cottonwood Heights became a city. It's got a handful of nonconformities, legal nonconformities that have just kind of been vested over from its development pre-city. And one of those includes a legal nonconforming parking lot that, you know, just doesn't meet current standards, but did back in the day. By the city zoning ordinance, the applicant is required to add 4 additional parking stalls to the 3 that are on site today. And that's a requirement based on the office use of the building and the occupiable square footage.
So what's been used as an office?
It's been used as a pharmacy and as a home for individuals with disabilities. So for this new use, they were required to add a few more stalls. And in order to do that, in order to add those stalls and also provide a safe layout, safe circulation, the applicant is proposing an alternative parking plan, meaning it's one that doesn't meet the strict standard of what we would require for new development. In our city code, the city engineer is required to recommend approval of an alternative parking plan, which he has done, but the ARC needs to actually be the one to formally approve it. So that's why we've included it in tonight's scope of work, just to share that with you. So this is the site here that was the proposed layout. I'm just going to walk us through it at kind of a high level. Again, this has been reviewed by the city engineer. It has his recommendation, but just to give you kind of a walkthrough here, we have an existing curb cut on the south side of the property here. That would be our entrance, and it's going to be kind of a one-way flow of circulation throughout the site. So coming back this way, we see some angled striping for stalls. The stalls do meet the dimension specifications of any new development, which we like to see. And then we wrap around this way, and I'll note that in order to make this work, they'll be removing a non-conforming garage that currently sits in this back corner. This layout also preserves the existing landscaping buffer that sits between the residential property to its rear. So we like to see that. And then wrapping around here toward the north of the site, we get a few parking stalls that are just laid out parallel here. My cursor's not tracking very well on the projector, but then we exit out of this existing curb cut, and we have 1 parking stall on the frontage stretch of Highland. And that is an element that the ARC has the purview to approve if it's found to sort of promote the purposes of the city's ordinances and design standards, and it is found to be sort of an important element in preparing a plan that functions well. So this plan does include all 7 required spaces. It has been what staff has found to be a strong effort toward making it as conforming and compliant as we can on an existing non-conforming site that isn't redeveloping yet.
You said it does meet the number.
It does meet the number. Yep. But to fit the required number, they proposed one there on that frontage section of Highland.
Otherwise, they're.
And would that be a painted?
I believe it would be striped. Yeah, we can clarify with the applicant if you'd like, but one of our conditions of approval that we'll see here is that we're recommending the striping and signage just be approved by the city engineer with any directional arrows to help make it clear how the site functions. So,
But if there are no visitors,
right, and that's a really important context to bring up again. It's just that they plan to have 6 employees at this site. They have to have 7 stalls by zoning ordinance.
Right.
They're not proposing any clients. And so I think all of those criteria go into staff's recommendation of approval tonight. And just the understanding that we see this as a big improvement to the site as it exists today. I'm just going to give a summary of the analysis. It's listed fully in the staff report with all of our findings, but we find that it complies with the applicable design standards from the design guidelines in the Gateway District. It's not a designated historic site, so that's irrelevant. There's no new buildings or additions proposed, and the overall character of the district is maintained in our findings. So Our recommendation tonight is that any future signage that might be added just needs to come back for certificate of design compliance. They're not proposing any signage at this time, but if that changes, and that directional striping and signage should be added to the site just to clarify the proper flow of traffic as approved by the city
Well,
engineer.
the reason they're here is for the parking. I mean, painting the outside and making some exterior upgrades didn't have to come by.
It did, yeah. So by our city code, that's actually required in the Gateway Overlay District. So that would have been the scope of work in its entirety if zoning ordinance didn't require them to add more parking. And so, you know, they've made what we feel as staff to be a really strong effort to make that work and kind of make it as conforming as possible in a non-conforming site. So we've got our model motions here for whenever y'all are ready. But if you have any questions for staff or for the applicant, we can certainly chat.
I'd like to invite the applicant to make any comments or clarification if you'd like.
Derek, if you want to just come up and maybe grab a seat, we've got microphones on the table, so your voice will.
Here?
Yep, if that's fine with the Scots on either side.
I do not,
Oh, shoot.
just outside.
Form that chair for a future commission seat.
Well, thank you for having us. When we were originally approached by the owner, who's kind of a longtime personal friend through kids sports, but originally we had proposed investigating a mixed use with professional office and some residential, but hopefully that's still in the future. So this is hopefully kind of a stopgap, but we want to make it as nice as we can within reason with that plan. I can't guarantee that will ever happen as you know, to the owner, but that's the intent, is to actually bring in a nicer building. So I don't know if mentioning that makes anything worse than not saying anything at all, but that is the intent. So yeah, I think really Samantha did a great job capturing everything. Any technical coordination with engineering, we'll do that, and we're just trying to make it as compliant as possible and make it usable for the owner. So.
Great, thank you. Any comments from the commission?
Well, I think it's certainly a functional response to the need. So I don't have any challenges with the site itself, but I think your proposal for the painting and the upgrade of the exterior is certainly in harmony with expectation. But I'm dying to hear what Mr. Peters would like to say about the landscape.
Oh, you think I'm gonna say something? Huh? Okay.
Because I believe that you indicate that you're gonna leave that island area or the park strip area as existing. And I would strongly recommend that we do something more than that.
The intent was, so we did a landscape design with a previous version where we didn't have the loop, but we actually had 4 parking stalls in front. This is a revision coming out of the planning commission meeting. And the intent was, originally we had redesigned that whole front, but now that we're doing the additional hardscape and all the work in the back, we would like to keep the curb and gutter the same, but with new landscaping.
Yeah,
Yes,
so we'd change that from existing landscaping to new landscape.
Existing landscaping area, maybe with new landscaping added.
Yeah,
It's been kind of an influx plan in response to the feedback of planning commission in preparation for this meeting. So I think, you know, that sounds like something you could add. I will note, just from a zoning perspective, if it is relevant, the percentage of landscaping that's required is met, and the existing buffer between the residential property is being maintained. So from just a zoning perspective, we like to see that, but certainly within the purview of the ARC to recommend some enhanced landscaping.
the owner's intent was xeriscape in the front, and then anything in the landscape buffers as best we can to meet everything. So he's aware and expecting. We just didn't want to do a full new landscape design until we knew the outcome of this building, or the outcome of this meeting.
So you will eventually provide a landscape plan.
I believe it's required.
Yeah, and what we could do is the ARC could require, just as a condition of approval, if it's something you all are comfortable with, that the landscaping be incorporated in that area. And we can even have, you know, forward the plan to the chair for any comments that you might have. We've, I think, done that on past projects. So
So is it a new owner or is it? And then the new owner is a construction company.
Yeah, he bought it probably, man, probably like 8, 9 months ago.
Yeah, he's been working on it for some time.
Yeah, oh, so like 4 or 5 months of that was doing the previous design, and we
Yep.
actually went through the DRC with that.
Yep.
And then ultimately he changed to want to just move in, not knowing that it was gonna go to the planning commission and the park review. So he's anxious to move in, so he's not paying double rent, but he's also got roofing maintenance and some other things he wants to.
He's been
Get
anxious,
done.
I know, about cleaning up the property and
Yeah,
it needs some TLC, so.
Those are my comments.
Thank you. Any other comments? The only thing that I would comment on is, well, one, second, the importance of having a landscape plan, and the landscape that is there is past its life, and so I think it should be completely replaced. And so, if the commission is comfortable, I would be happy to work with staff to approve that, but as long as you're all comfortable with that. The other thing is I know you're trying to use the existing driveways, or I'm concerned about, actually go back.
Let's see if I can get you. I can actually pull it up on the street view if that's better.
Actually, the plan, I think, is
Okay,
best.
let's flip back to that then.
So the one concern I have is the north driveway. If you look at its alignment with the parking, those first 2 parking stalls,
These here.
I think that creates a potential conflict, and by being as wide as it is, I think people are going to look at it as a 2-way entrance. I would recommend not changing the driveway, but narrowing the driveway. So bringing the north curb, the new north curb, that one, a little bit further south to align with that.
With the stall.
Yeah, so you don't have that conflict. Now, you're gonna have to be careful because the car that parks there has to be able to get in, but they're coming from the other direction, so it shouldn't be an issue. I think that'll eliminate some potential conflicts. The other,
Can I say something?
yeah,
When I looked at this yesterday, I thought the same thing, but also wondered is it possible that you could move those parallel parking stalls next to the building instead of being opposite the drive aisle?
possibly, yes, in
I know
theory,
you've got
so.
a length problem right now as it's designed.
Right, we actually had 3 and we had them 20 feet long. One of the comments from
Adam,
Adam.
he's our city engineer for those who haven't met him.
I almost said Andy and I knew it wasn't right. Adam was that he wanted those 22 feet, and that's what.
Yeah.
And that pinch point is what pushed the 3rd stall out onto the street. In theory, in answer to your question, yes, we could pull those down next to the building. I don't think that there's any window wells or anything right there. The only place we can put those parallel parking stalls is to the east of the gate, because you can see that the house jogs to the north in the back, and we don't technically have the width
Right.
required.
My only recommendation as staff is just that if the ARC does make a recommendation on changing an element of the parking plan, we make it contingent on the city engineer
Right.
also recommending approval. He's recommended approval of this layout. So as far as bringing the curb down, we would just want to make sure that it doesn't violate the minimum width for the curb cut, which I'd have to refresh my memory on for a commercial property. So
I think it's 50 feet.
the minimum?
I thought that's what.
That's
For the
the
curb cut
distance
itself?
between.
Oh,
cuts,
between
but,
the two, but the actual, Andy may pull it up.
usually they're like 20 feet, but that's usually for a 2-way. And
Sure.
this is a 1-way, so I'm thinking you could maybe narrow it.
It may be very well feasible. I think we just want to staff verify that doesn't conflict with the city code.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to get the circulation to go the other direction when I was looking at it, but I know why you've done what you've done. It's to get those parking stalls so you can access them. I do like the parking the problem with the parking, the way it is right now is the orientation is you're opening your door to the
Back to a
fence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was my
and
thought.
it's gonna be there,
No.
that's gonna push people to park further into the drive lane. And so I would review that with the city engineer.
So maybe if there's an option to, like Scott Henriksen was saying, move them down to the building, that might be something that's a
No
little
objection.
bit.
Given the circulation pattern, that makes sense, but does the gate have to be in that location?
There's, just to the left of the gate, there
Yes,
is
meter or whatever.
a condensing unit right there that he would rather not move, but could move. But other than that, I don't think that there's any reason why that couldn't move.
The minimum curb cut just has to be 12 feet. So
For one way.
12 feet for
Yeah.
the curb cut, so
I
Not sure
think
what the
a
dimension is,
compromise position is what you're suggesting, Scott, that let's narrow up the curb cut, protect that last car. And make it obvious that it's a one-way circulation.
I'm actually happy to approve either way. There's no point in narrowing it if the stalls are on the other side.
sure, so,
So it's one or the other.
okay, so maybe a condition and phrase this however you wish, but just to make sure I understand what motion might be made. To either bring the north parking stalls closer to the side of the building so that they align with this plane. Or if they're left there, drop the curb to protect them. What I'm
Actually,
hearing.
yeah, I actually think bringing them over would be better circulation if you could do it.
We could check with the engineer and see, but it's helpful for us to know that if that's not feasible, the alternative of dropping a curb.
And in that sense, since you're already replacing curb on the landscape piece, you could narrow it up the opposite direction, right?
Well, you're gonna probably need the same width for the drive lane. Cause the drive,
Understood.
yeah.
I mean, the question I have, are you saying that in order to get it to fit against the building? Instead of 22 feet, they would need to be 20 feet parallel stalls?
The width north and south requires. I can't quite remember, it was 12 or 14 feet. I know it was 14 feet back out space for the 45-degree parking. I just remember Malad, who used to work for us, we didn't have the north-south in the back part of the house, but in just having that 1 or 2 foot step south in the front of the house
Yeah,
gave us the width to do a parallel stall in the drive outlet.
So that, and I'm sorry, I guess I mean the length.
so
maybe.
if you brought them down to the side of the building, would you have to squish them to be shorter stalls? With the 22-foot length, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so.
Would the 22-foot length still work, do you think, hugging the building?
Right,
I-
the code
other than-
requires, I think you're right, it's
Other than putting my fingers up there,
Well,
it looks like it's close.
something we could check
Yeah.
and see.
And you probably have to limit the gate to swinging to the west instead of
Yeah,
bi-directional,
Move the gate and make
or
it,
move the gate.
make it a smaller gate with with a little piece of fence or something.
How do they reserve that outside parking space specifically for this building?
I'm not sure if there's strictly a mechanism to do that. I mean, it would be striped to look like a parking space. There's no requirement that says they have to sign it as part of theirs. They may not functionally need it.
Oh, it's not. I'm not, I haven't been by that lately. Is already, it's all asphalted right there.
Yeah, so it's
Oh, so
all,
they just use it.
Yeah.
You're not gonna specific.
they may stripe it. We'll have to check with the city engineer who requires it. But I don't think there's a requirement that they have to put a sign that
Oh,
specifies.
So they're just saying their employees can use. an
It's
outside
available
parking
as a 7th parking stall to meet the code.
that is a public road, so it's just regular street
Right.
parking.
space. Right.
It's just there and
We'll
it,
let you park it on the street.
It
I
can-
think we'd probably even prefer not to have it like reserved or anything,
Right,
but just
I get it.
basically to say
this can
That
count.
can,
towards-
that can,
there's an extra space.
that can
if
add
needed.
to your.
Yep.
Total for the.
Yep, and that's something that really interestingly is called out specifically in the ARC's purview, which
I get it.
we don't see a whole lot of, but it can be a good help in trying to make non-conforming sites viable for tenancy.
Yeah.
So,
Have you officed at that building?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, no, the owner just bought it vacant.
Oh, the way you
Um,
spoke, I sounded like you worked in that building.
Oh,
you're
no,
just familiar with it from having
way too familiar with
run
that building.
run the races.
You feel like you look at it.
I think we all feel like we live in this building.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then the third thing that I have is I feel like it's critical they have directional signage.
Okay. Yep.
Particularly the one-way,
Okay.
the one-way. So those are my thoughts. Does anyone have any other comments?
And the directional signage is included as an implied condition, but if you want to word it any differently, feel free to include that in your motion. I think that is important in helping it function as a,
Oh, sorry.
oh, no, go ahead.
Is pavement striping enough, or are you thinking pole mounted signage on one or both sides, or?
I hate to see any more signage than we have to have, but I do think
No,
you
do not
need a
enter
do
sign.
not
At
enter
least on the
sign
exit one.
on that exit one.
Yeah,
Entrance,
And
exit.
maybe
Yeah.
surface striping throughout, but with one do not enter on the
Yeah.
exit. Okay, so if you would just include that in your motion, so we have it for the record, if that is what the commission decides to do.
Okay, any other comments? So I need a motion. What I would like to see is a motion that, one, they provide a complete landscape plan. Two, that they work with the city engineer and city staff to look at either narrowing the exit drive or moving the parking closer to the building. And three, providing directional signage, particularly striping, and one do not enter sign. That's what I would like to see if I could make a motion.
go for it, Scott.
As well stated.
Okay, well, I can attempt to
So
summarize that.
so
You
moved.
can do so moved if you want.
Okay, so I move to issue a certificate of design compliance for project CUP 22-101. On the conditions that were listed by Commissioner Peters.
Thank you. Do we need to clarify any of the staff recommendations as well?
With your specification in your suggested motion of the type of signage, I feel that's appropriately clarified for the record.
Okay, so Scott, I would think we want any future signage added to the building to come back. Add that one as well.
Oh, and those are, I think, implied already in the
Standard.
motion, yes, so you don't have to read those in, it's. I don't know.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay,
Should we have clarified that the landscape plan could be reviewed directly by you?
I'm comfortable with that being on the record outside of the
Okay.
motion.
Okay.
That applies.
great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Derek, I'll coordinate with you on next steps for
Okay.
getting all wrapped up. Have a good night. Thanks for coming by.
So with that, we'll move to item 3.0, which is the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the minutes as listed on the agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. With that, I need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
A second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Out of our Zoom partner, I couldn't hear him.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the meeting is
Oh, there it is.
adjourned.
Thank you, Commissioner Harmon, for joining through Zoom. We appreciate it.
I assumed if he opposed that we would have heard him. That's why I called
I
for
know, it's
the
like-
opposition vote.
Oh, no, I
Thank you
didn't
to-
see it real nice
thank you
on
to
there.
everyone. Coming, really appreciate it. And I don't know if Andy, do you want to share your news?
It's my last meeting here, so,
Oh.
yeah. Samantha's capable hands.
Approve this. I have some opposition, but I'd like to.
Well, what are you
Where are you
doing?
going?
Salt Lake City. So excited. I'm sad. I love it here. I really like this group. I'm not just sucking up. In fact, I'm leaving, so I wouldn't even have to.
Yeah,
Right? So,
You can help me with some of my projects.
Perfect.
What are you gonna be doing at the city?
the title is Principal Planner Inland Port. So
Wow.
Nice.
I guess I will be working on that.
There's no controversy. there.
Yeah. But yeah, you made this point of like, it's just within the purview of what the city can do. It's not advocating for it to exist. It's not.
All right, I would not be working for the state and I know I'd just be part of the regular planning staff there, so I wouldn't only be doing that.
Yeah.
On
Congratulations.
some Maverick stations or.
Okay, so yeah,
case
yeah.
maybe.
Maybe my building permit when I go to try to
Yeah,
expand a
Sam's
non-conforming space.
house. Right, yeah,
We'll be really
Yeah,
sad to
no.
lose Andy.
yeah, it's been good. This is a good group. One of
Well,
the more interesting.
You've done a good job supporting us and I hate to see you go. So good luck though. in
Congrats,
your
yeah.
I appreciate that.
adventures.
I'll be getting more emails from me. I am taking Andy's job, so be patient with me as I try to fill very big shoes, but
Yeah, the way we have it set up is the senior planner runs these meetings. So we don't have, usually we'd have all of us with the director and a whole bunch of other people, and it's a little bit less staff, so. But like I said, Sam's very capable, talented, you're in good
I feel I
hands.
have the advantage of being around the block for a few years here, so.
I'm curious on this one we just looked at. It feels like they've been through a lot and it seems like a very simple thing, is it? Why have they been through so much?
It's really hard when there's a non-conforming site, because if you're able to just keep it exactly how it is.
Is this like, you have to put it out to the neighbors and all that or what?
For planning commission, we had to notice, 500 feet.
Did you have resistance or?
No,
They're all commercial
It's just
properties.
been,
that's
there's
right.
like 3 parking spaces and they need 7.
They
And there's
had
just
to-
not really space for that many.
Yeah. So that was the part that was.
Yeah.
They tried doing 4 in.
Oh, I see.
They tried doing like 2, like doubles, they
they tried
did
it all.
like 5 different layouts, this one
Also,
worked.
Oh, I see.
if the building had been just in great shape, it wouldn't have needed to be painted and changed, but it's a simultaneous thing of the building was dilapidated and needed to come back to the arc, and they had to change the site, but it's,
It was all this, yeah, just kept trying to do it.
Yeah. I think it's been a frustrating project, so I'm glad to see them kind of getting to a place where
It
it will
seems like
work.
fairly straightforward. You know, it's like,
Well, I'm glad you think so.
Yeah, but I think it's important that when they're doing that much to the site,
yeah,
that it comes back.
no, I agree with that, but it just seems like. If that's a hair pull outer, then.
What we try to keep in mind, what we told them,
Yeah.
That's true, yeah.
they had said like, well, we're probably, planning to redevelop it at some point, so can we just do something kind of a temporary measure?
Yeah.
But what we shared with them is anything we approve, we have to assume it'll last forever. So even if your intention is just to kind of do a
That's
temporary
true.
fix, we have to treat it as though that's what's gonna be
Right.
there.
Put a bad Band-Aid on it. and
Yeah.
it's there forever.
So that's part of it, is we have to try to bring it as close as we can to the standard in the sense that it could be there for a very long time, so.
Some of them bad.
The commission is aware that on minor things, the city staff reaches out to me and says, hey, is this minor enough for the staff to approve it? And if it is, then I, in my judgment, if it is, then I let
You
it
don't
proceed.
take it, exactly.
No.
If it
Yeah,
had just been paint, I think we would have kind of suggested
Yeah.
that, but with the
Right,
circulation, we felt like it was substantial enough for the full commission to,
yeah.
but yeah, with it, it's just like a small cosmetic thing we typically.
And so 2 things that I look at. One, I look at it to see if what the magnitude of the revisions are. How big of a deal is it? And 2, I look to see, is there anything that I think might be controversial or something that people wouldn't feel comfortable with, then I try to bring it
Right,
forward. For example, we had a building,
stop talking.
for example, we had a building a few weeks ago, months ago, that was doing signage, and I wasn't very comfortable with what was the signage being proposed, so I brought it.
Better to be
Oh, that was
cautious,
that, elf deal, yeah,
the mountain land.
yeah, what was already on the building was objectionable, so. It was just like,
But I didn't want to approve it, just, you know, so.
Should we go ahead and close the Zoom meeting? Is
Yes,
everybody comfortable now that we've adjourned?
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Audio's working.
Yeah.
Seem to be there. We can end that, and
meanwhile, Steve's still in the meeting.
we're just glad we could get a quorum together.